Hello, everybody. Thank you for joining our webinar today. This is the first one called How Risky is Your Promise Date? And it's one of 3 in the Bidding to Win webinar series. We're doing another 2, one later on this month, February, and then another one in March. So we do hope that you enjoy this one and you'll join us for all 3. Okay, so without further ado, let's start. And first of all, let's just tell you a little bit about ourselves. I'm Jonas, CEO of Risk Decisions, and I've been working for the company for something like 33 years. So that is an age, isn't it? But Trevor's been with us for more than 10, so we've got a lot of experience. And although we sell software, we actually see ourselves as people who really know about risk. We work across the world with customers, and we've got people on the ground in Canada, Australia, and Europe, in the UK, which is where our head office is. What's our agenda today? Bidding to win. We'll start with the challenge, and I'll just give you a little bit of statistics and some research. And Trevor's going to then go into a live demo. Could be quite exciting, doing anything live with software. He's going to talk you through schedule risk analysis in practice. I will come back and talk about what the benefits are, and I do hope that you'll be able to join us for the Q&A session. I believe that we should get through the webinars will last about half an hour. Hopefully you'll be able to stay on to join us for that. Okay, so let's start with, first of all, the challenge. So I read recently, I think it was the end of 2021, a KPMG report entitled Project Delivery Confidence. Well, in risk, we're all about confidence. In that report, and it was just about infrastructure projects, and they said that they estimate that there'll be something like a $3.2 trillion annual spend on infrastructure projects to 2030. Well, that's a lot of money, and that's not including defence and, well, all the other sectors. And the shocking thing is that more than 90% of those projects are, well, currently they overrun and are over budget, one or other or both, which is shocking because obviously that's an awful lot of money and that's an awful lot of waste. And we need to deliver, especially today where there is such a large amount of emphasis on recovery after the pandemic. Let's have a look at some examples. Well, Denver Airport, that was 9 years late. Oh, that's a lot. Warrior Armored Vehicle. Well, not only was it, by the time they cancelled the project, it was already running 7 years late. But also, I think it was never going to deliver the scope or the functionality that it had originally been designed to do. So pretty big disaster and a lot of money down the drain. And also London Crossrail, well, that's been in the news here in London recently, but along with other projects like the big nuclear power stations. But if you're listening, I think most of you will be in Australia. There are some serious issues with late projects and projects being cancelled by the government. There's a big focus on getting it right, and you don't want your project cancelled. This KPMG report focused on some McKinsey statistics, and I like this. This graph is quite interesting. They plotted all the projects, and this is in mining infrastructure and oil and gas projects. So again, it doesn't include some of the other sectors like defence. The average overrun was 20 months, which is quite scary. If we look at that one at the top, that's an overrun of 9 years. So I wonder whether that was the Denver Airport project. Who knows? I don't know the detail behind this. So you see along the x-axis, that's the delay beyond the original schedule in years. But it's not all bad news, because some projects come in early, and one of them, again, not sure whether that's this actual dot, but we have specific and direct experience of working with Lend-Lease, who built the 2020 Athletes Village. I have to say we're proud of working on that, and it's going to be a theme of the live session that Trevor's going to do on the software, is talk you through some of the issues with the Olympic Village. So even though it was a project that we started working on in 2007, and that was that was actually at the time of the 7/7 bombings, and then also the global credit crunch came along. There were enormous challenges with the Olympics, as there always are. Similarly, not just financial and economic problems, but also schedule challenges. They were building on a brownfield site with huge earthworks. They had to move and decontaminate soil. They had to cut down the number of athletes per room. They changed the number of tower blocks they were building. It was all change, but it was an amazing project. I was in at the beginning when we did a big masterclass with the senior managers from Australia, because of course Lendlease is an Australian company. They came in and we had a lot of fun planning how the strategy for delivering the village. Okay, so yes, it's not all bad. Some projects come in on time. You've got to have a good level of maturity and you've got to start right. And it starts at bidding stage. If you don't bid the project right, then you don't stand a chance of coming in on time. Another customer that we work with is Kinetic, and they did some research a while ago. And I think this information was on about 30 to 40 projects. And they looked at the maturity level of the project. So you can see on the left-hand side, there's level 1 to level 4 maturity. And on the right-hand side, they were looking at how much the projects overran. And they looked at both schedule and cost. You can see from the plot that they did of these projects, with increasing maturity, as the projects went from naive at level 1 all the way through novice and normalized to natural at level 4, which meant they were actually doing really good risk management, project management, they actually managed to decrease the overruns. So they saw a very marked results in terms of the correlation between maturity and the overruns. So our experience is that there are all sorts of maturity levels in companies that we come across, that we work with during their bid stage. They have totally embedded schedule risk analysis. They run it multiple times to refine the bid submission. They also, the next level is slightly worse, where it's only embedded a bit. So maybe they get to some point in the bid and somebody goes, have we done a schedule risk analysis? And it happens towards the end of the bid. Now, we all know that bids are really, really difficult, stressful, resource hungry, time limited things. So in fact, bids could be regarded as projects in their own right. But if you wait until nearly the end to do your schedule analysis, then that could cause you some problems because you won't have time to refine it and work out how to deal with the answers you get. Then at the next level, ad hoc, well, maybe run an SRA, maybe if somebody asks for it, and at the worst scenario, not at all. So maybe there's no requirement. I don't know that any project really could seriously say they don't need to do an SRA. And we do it on all of our projects. When we roll out our software, we do schedule risk analysis on the rollout. Okay, I'm going to hand you over to Trevor now to talk through building the schedule. And I'll be back shortly. So, Trevor.
Well, hopefully you'll be joining me, because I want to be sort of presenting this really to yourself as a way of, this is how we've worked through a schedule. And please ask me some questions here, because I want you to hopefully agree with the decisions we've been making through this. But I wanted to take you through the process that I've gone through to get to where we are.
Okay, so, well, I'm going to ask you some questions then as we go. Can I also remind people that we've got, if they want to ask any questions, then you can open the chat and type something in, and we'll either answer them as we go along or possibly hold them to the end when we have the Q&A session. So please do put your questions up if you want to. Okay, Trevor.
All right, thanks. So, Val, what we've got here is the schedule that the planners have come up with. So you can see the different activities. And against some of these, I've actually allocated some risks. So the schedulers did a great job. They came up with a plan, and we'll have a look through that in a bit more detail in a minute. And then what I've done is worked with the team to identify some of the basic risks that could affect this. And you can see here, this one here, the groundworks problem. I think you already mentioned the brownfield site that we were building on.
Yeah, I've never seen so much mud in my life.
Yeah. So that's linked to this construct foundations activity. So basically, if this risk occurs, it's going to add time to the construct foundations activity. And then I've got other ones as well. If we move up here, just to make it simple for the demo, I've just got 3 different risks that I've associated with our schedule here. So this.
So Trevor, is there a limit on the number of risks that you can add and the size of project?
Yeah. Oh no, that's a good point. Now, as I said, I'll just make it simple here. I've just put 3 in for the purposes of the demo, but there's no limits to the number of risks that you can have associated. In fact, you can have multiple risks associated with in a single activity if you wanted to as well. Okay. So this is effectively the risk register for our project. But what I can do now is click the Analyze button here, and it brings me straight down into the Predict Risk Analyzer, the Monte Carlo analysis part of Predict. So let me just sort of describe the screen to you first. The way the Monte Carlo is working, of course, is it's running through the schedule thousands of times, and it's actually taking, in this case, just the uncertainty in the duration of the activities. Now, the schedulers did a great job here because they actually came up with 3-point estimates for the duration of each activity. That isn't always the case, all right? And if that's what you get, we can actually, when we import the schedule into Predict, we can actually create some uncertainty by saying, let's take 5% less and 10% more, or whatever we want to give us a range of uncertainty around the individual single points that the schedulers, the planners have come up with. And that's what this is showing here now, is the distribution of all of the different end dates I got when I ran that schedule through, just looking at the uncertainty. And actually things are looking reasonably good at the moment, because it's saying that the schedulers, with their single point in the middle, they're most likely, said it would finish, the schedule would finish on the 10th of January. And we've actually got a 66% chance of doing that. If I wanted to give a date to somebody that we were 90% confident of reaching, i.e. out of the 1,000 times I've run this through, 900 of them finished before the 24th of January. Okay.
So Trevor, I recall with the Athletes Village, the Olympics started, I think, in August, but they were actually, they had a finish target date of, they had to be finished by April, didn't they? Because there was a school game
earlier than that, really. Yeah.
I think there was a school games scheduled for the 6th of May, and they were using the Athletes Village for that. So they had to be finished well by the middle of April at the latest. Yeah. So they were really focused on, it was absolutely focused on schedule. And it was at a time when it was just after Wembley Stadium had been such a disaster. Which I think it was.
That's not just when England play there, though.
Yeah. So they were really focused on schedule, and one of the things that they were doing was making sure that they were absolutely confident of bringing it in on time. So 66% doesn't look great as a.
Well, that is January, remember? So
okay.
That's not too bad. But we do need to look a little bit further. As I said, I wanted to take you through the story of how I've got to the decision I want you to make at the end, because that looks fine, all right. But one of the things we need to do whenever we bring a schedule in is check it to see how valid it is for performing a full schedule risk analysis. And what you can see here is that I've actually got a constraint, right? That's saying that one of these activities, it is just the one here, has been given a date that it always must start on that. And we can actually see that graphically, in that if we look at the Gantt chart here, you can see this mobilized to site activity always has to start on that date.
I remember that when we were looking at this at the beginning of the Athletes Village, because they were building 18 tower blocks and they anchored the start of the build of the tower blocks at certain points. And it's like, but what happens if things go wrong?
Or, but not even necessarily just go wrong. What that's meaning is if these activities finish, in fact, when they were scheduled to, or even earlier, I can't take advantage of that.
Oh, so there's opportunity you're wasting there.
Yeah, that's right.
Okay.
Assuming, of course, we can move that gear, we don't really need that constraint. There's an opportunity I can bring things forward. And we can see that is if I actually say I want to run without the constraints, then you can see now that here I've got the ability for this activity to start much, much earlier. Yeah. And what that means, if we come over to our dashboard, is things are looking even better. Look, I'm now 94% confident that I'd be able to meet that 10th of January date. Yeah. So, yeah, we might as well give up, finish now. We're in. Apart from, remember we had a risk register. We had some risks attached. Here, I'm just
so we're only looking at uncertainty here.
We're only looking at the uncertainty.
So uncertainty on the task durations.
The task duration, that's right. Yeah. So what we need to do now is to say what happens when we bring the risks in. And that's the nice big red bit now that's appeared. And things aren't looking so good now. Look, our 10th of January, we've only got a 50% chance of finishing. If I want to give somebody a date that I'm 90% confident of, I've moved out to March. Okay.
Now,
I really want to be having this in February.
Well, okay. And also, because we're the Olympic Village and we really don't want to finish late, I want to know what the 100% confidence is, Trevor.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, in which case, we move the slider. Oh, my goodness. Oh, did you really have to ask me about 100%? Yeah.
I like asking difficult questions. I mean, I'm the one that has to explain this to the Olympic Delivery Authority.
There you go. That's why okay. So I've got the ability to on here just look at that really quite quickly. So that's not looking too good. Let's look back at that sort of the Gantt chart view there again to see what's happening. And here we are. We were taking advantage. We're still taking advantage of that opportunity. We were able to move these things earlier. But if we look now down here, that construct foundations activity, it's gone red. And look at the uncertainty about when this activity, this black line here, this activity might finish.
So is that's the earliest it could finish and the latest it could finish? Is that right?
That's right. Yes, the black is the earliest it could finish, which actually relies on it starting early, if you think about it, which is the blue, but it could extend to right over here. Okay, and
that's the cumulative effect of all the risk and uncertainty up to that point, the risk on there. Yeah,
and it's the risk, because if you remember from our register, it was actually the construct foundations that our groundworks problem risk was associated with. Yeah, so that's why it's sitting there. So in fact, if we come back to our dashboard here, what I've got in the top right-hand corner is what's called a tornado chart that shows which activities are driving my end date the most. Yeah, and as we can see, it is that construct foundation one. Now, because we're all about risk, it's not just the activities I'm interested in, really, it's actually what are the risks that are impacting that. And you can see here, those are my three activities, my three risks that we had in that little register before. And I've highlighted the groundworks problem one here. And not only is it showing me that it's the one that's driving the overall end date more than the other two, it's giving me, look, it's 35 days that it's adding to the duration of this project.
So before that was telling me the 90% confidence end date, but now it's telling me the 90% confidence. So it's telling me how many days that risk is contributing.
That particular risk, that's right. I mean, overall, with the uncertainty and the three risks we've got as they are at the moment, yes, it's still telling me I'm 90% confident of finishing the middle of March.
Okay.
This risk on its own is adding 35 days to that 14th of March bit.
So I want to know what you're going to do about it.
Well, that's it. Now, we could live in the fantasy world and say we can just get rid of it. but that's not really realistic. So what I'm suggesting, and we've had a good old discussion with some of the engineers and things about this, and they do reckon, in fact, you can see here that at the moment, the estimate for this risk is it's going to add somewhere between 40, 50 to 60 days. All right. Now, we don't think we can get rid of it completely, but I wanted to show you what might happen if we could actually halve it. 20, 25, 30.
So is this what you call what if analysis then? You're just saying, what if you could halve it, what will happen?
Precisely. That's it. Yeah. So it's allowing me to try these things out to see if it's worth doing, if it's doing enough. Okay. Without changing any of the data anywhere else. I'm not changing my risk registers. I'm literally just trying it out. So we set it going again. And there we go. It's just about run through. Okay. Oh, here it comes. And right, what can we see? Well, the groundwork problem one now, it's still adding 22 days, but look, our 90% confidence has come into February already. All right. So that's the sort of thing that I was trying to get. I wanted to get my 90% confidence to February. There we. It's still out at May. There's something else in there. And in fact, you can see it in this long tail here. There's a low probability but high impact thing that we still need to have a look at. But
okay, well, you've got some more work to do, but I can see you're on the way. We're
on the way. And what we need to do is to perhaps go back into the risk register, which I can just do by clicking on here. Oops, I could if I went into it. All right. And okay. And I would potentially be able to change some of the information about this risk here. But just to show you how I've been proceeding with this so far is once I write the information back in from Risk Controller, I'm able to run a report. So hopefully here it comes. And it's showing me, oh, right, the trend of those confidences. I've got my 10, 50, 90% confidence values here. Okay, so I haven't gone back down yet.
It looks like it's getting worse. So obviously
that's the problem. Yeah, which is why we're having this conversation, Val.
Well, that's quite typical during a bid, because during the bid, people put their heads together, work out what the problems are. It takes some time. So typically you might go through this 4 or 5 or 6 times, each time going and asking the experts, what can you do about this? How can we get it to a point where it's acceptable? How can we get it back into February so we can be absolutely sure that we're going to deliver on time?
Yeah, and I think you're also finding that you're coming up with more potential threats as you're putting the bid together, because you're finding out, well, right now I've gone into a bit more detail. This could go wrong as well. So that's why my trend is going the wrong way at the moment.
Yeah.
Okay. Anyway, there you go. That's how we're doing it in the bid at the moment.
Okay. All right. So I'm going to have a look at, from my point of view, I want to think about what am I actually going to get as benefits out of this. Trevor's been showing you how to do risk analysis using Predict. It's not just a schedule risk analysis tool, it's also a risk register and a risk and action register. So we're in a bid stage. You would actually want to put actions into your system and make sure they were done, because you're always going to end up bidding on a residual position. And we're going to come back and talk about that a bit more when we do the cost schedule analysis in the next webinar. Predict is not just the risk database and the risk analyzer tool. We also have a risk visualizer tool. It's all based on the cloud. We have a risk reporter capability to do custom reports, building dashboards and all sorts of things, links up to things like Power BI. It's a full suite of software. Coming back to building confidence in your promise date, There are, I believe, 6 ingredients to achieving this. You need a robust schedule. And Trevor talked about the schedule check to make sure that you didn't have constraints and all your logic is correct, lags and leads, all sorts of things that you need in order to do a good risk analysis. So it's got to be a good quality schedule and good quality uncertainty and risk data. And there needs to be an audit trail. So if you've got it all in spreadsheets, how are you going to keep track of that? You also need the time and the expertise to do the analysis. So if, when you're in a bidding situation, you're very time constrained. You need innovative problem solvers, as Trevor said. He went back to the engineers to talk to them about the groundworks problems. What could you actually do about this? And you need good communication skills. So in order to communicate to people like me, a manager wanting to know how you're going to get this in on time, you do need to be able to talk to those managers and talk them through what you're doing. Things like the what if you can reduce the time on these things, and that will also cost money. So you've got to, it's a kind of a business case that you've got to put risks through. Finally, it's no good unless you've got mature decision makers, and maturity comes into this in a big way. The benefits, well, you want to deliver a profit margin, you want to deliver the scope, you want to deliver whatever initiative you're trying to achieve, and time is money. So if you don't get schedule right, then you're probably going to lose money. Something that we didn't talk about is penalties. A lot of the projects that you especially in infrastructure, have penalties associated with being late. You don't want to be paying penalties. Reputation is absolutely fundamental, because if you do badly on one project, just think about Lend-Lease were really focused on the failure of Wembley Stadium as a previous example, and they didn't want to suffer that reputation loss. And in these days where it's ever more difficult to recruit and retain staff, you need to keep those people in the organisation. And running a project well, doing things like schedule risk analysis, getting it right at the bid stage is a great way of making people feel like you're a great company to work for and to delight your customers. And talking about customers, here's some satisfied customers of ours worldwide. Delighted to talk to you about some of the examples of how we help customers. We're going to be using a couple more case studies as we go on and do the cost. And then the third webinar, which is around how to bid competitively. We've got various resources. If you want to look at our website, there's a white paper called Successful Planners Take Risks. That's all about the kind of things you need to do, both in a bid stage and through the project. There's a copy of the case study, and there's a couple of other things. One of the things that we do offer is support, so we can come in and help you do your bids. We can help train you, upskill you, or just become part of your team. So if you feel like a bit of bedtime reading, then download those. We've, I think, we are pretty much on the half-hour mark, and we've got to our Q&A session. I don't know whether we've got any questions yet, but if you've got anything, type it into the chat. And I'd like to remind you that our next webinar, Bidding to Win, number 2, how risky is your budget? So we'll look at not just, in this case, we're going to look at schedule risk analysis. In the next one, we're going to look at cost risk analysis. We're going to run that twice so that we can get it to people around the world. Lucky USA, North America, Canada, they're going to be able to see it twice because they would be able to join us at 2 p.m. GMT for Europe and the USA morning time. And we'll do it again at this time, 8 a.m. Australia time. And that will also be the 24th of February, the evening or late afternoon for North America. Okay, so do we have any questions?
We've got one that's just arrived, yep.
What level of expertise do you need to effectively run an SRA? Oh, right, well, I was just talking about the things that we offer. But Trevor, just talk about if they weren't calling us in to help them, what sort of level do you need to run an SRA?
I think that's an interesting question, because one of the things we've tried to do, and in fact we debated amongst ourselves, is could we actually make it almost too easy to run an SRA. Because if you think about it, all I had to do was to press a button and I got an SRA out. But the key really isn't about what level of expertise you need to run it. It's to actually interpret the results that you're getting from it and be able to understand what might change things. Okay, and that's really the important side of things. Now, we can sell Risk Analyzer, but we always try and sell that with training, so that people more about understanding the outputs and what you're getting rather than the how to do it type of thing. But then we've also got our help desk, and they are very good at responding to questions. In fact, interestingly, I literally had one came in today that was copied to me that said, why are our dates 2 years out from the ones we were expecting? Can you help, please? And that's the sort of thing that our help desk will talk people through as well and help them look at their particular schedules. So it's really more about the understanding of the outputs and what inputs are changing those that is more important than actually being able to run the tool, as it were.
Yeah,
and I think you were talking about just before.
Yeah, you need to know how, as a risk analyst, you've got to work with the planners, because obviously doing a schedule analysis, you've either got to have, well, even if you've got a level of expertise in the scheduling tool, and we help people use tools like Microsoft Project, Primavera. We also have an interface integration with OpenPlan. Not all risk people will have expertise in those tools, but you certainly need to understand how schedules work. Because, like you said, if the question that came into our support team today, why is my schedule running 2 years later than I thought it should? That sort of thing, you need to be able to go and talk to planners and actually discuss what those things, why is this? It's usually to do with poorly logic linked and constrained schedules, and when the risk analysis.
I was thinking that one was probably a constraint that was part of the issue. I mean, I didn't have a chance to look at it, but that was the first impression. Yeah.
Okay, thank you all, and have a very good day.
Thank you, everybody. Thanks now.